Are you having trouble falling asleep? I have a book recommendation for you. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we're going to be talking about The Left Hand of Darkness, and the intro was somewhat a joke, but also somewhat not, because I nearly fell asleep completely sitting up, not laying down, whatever, multiple times trying to read through this. I've been a bit nervous to try The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursuka, LeGuin, which is the book here, in case you didn't see, because I'd heard really mixed things. And older sci-fi is a little bit hit or miss for me. This is an almost 60-year-old book and story, and I've read some older stuff there. Some of it I've liked, some of it I just haven't because of the style. This was just a big miss, and it's not poorly written, and I'm not saying this is bad. I am going to talk about some things that I think are good too, but I really struggled to get into this. I struggled to force myself to keep reading it. This is something I would have DNF'd any other month that I wasn't doing a readathon, but I tried to really give it a shot, so I was already like, 90 pages in before I'm like, I don't want to read this. And so I kept going, I pushed through, and this is not worth it for me. Let's talk about it though, because like I said, I think I can absolutely see why this is beloved and why this is still talked about as well, because it does do a lot of interesting things, and it's one of those sci-fi books that's more of a thought experiment than like sci-fi with space or spaceships or that kind of thing as well. And it takes place, we have our main character, Genly, who is sent as an envoy to this world, and he's basically supposed to introduce them to the fact that, hey, there's lots of other planets out there. We have this whole big group of us that are all together, and you can potentially join and open up trade with all these other worlds and that sort of thing. So he's supposed to kind of try to bring up that idea and then convince them to join, that sort of thing. And that's kind of the setup. But the story really all takes place on this world, which is kind of an ice planet. That's like, it's mentioned that it's on like the border of what's livable for humans because it is so cold. It would be like, on our world, the North-South Pole, that's kind of just normal weather. Livable, but not great. And so that's kind of the setup here. And the thought experiment, the big thing that we're exploring here is everyone on this world is like gender's not a thing, basically. Every individual person, for the most part, has like both sex organs, and then it's called chemering when they're basically like in heat, if you think of it like that term. But when they're at their time and they pair up, basically their bodies will change to support one being the quote-unquote male, one being the female. And that's something that the main character who's narrating this struggles a lot with, not being able to use, like, say he. And he's like, I say he, it's not really, because that's not technically correct here. And so it's exploring that. So right off the bat, those are all things that are very much still talked about today. The idea of gender and pronouns and all that sort of stuff is something that's still relevant. And so I get it, and like it is an interesting conversation to have here. And I've read other stuff, and it's kind of mentioned here as well too, that all humans are bisexual at this point in the world, basically, or in this story as well. But on this planet, it's weird, and they see it as like perverse that humans would be basically like open to that kind of stuff at any time, and not specifically when they're at their time, basically, because that's just the way it works here. So there's a lot of exploration of that sort of thing in it, and that's kind of a lot of the thought experiment. But it's just the way the writing style, it's just so dry that like this could have been the most interesting book in the world, and I still don't know how I would have felt about it, because I like slow books, and I'm okay with reading stuff sometimes that's a little bit dated, but this, for whatever reason, just the writing style just made it really hard for me to keep going, and every time I started reading it, I just like felt myself getting tired. I did try to do some of the audio too, but the narrator for this I also don't like at all, and there's so many words that are not like real words because they're from this world, that it also made it kind of hard to follow if you're not reading them, because it just sounds like he's saying nonsense in there. And so I struggled to get through this, and it's not a long book at all. This is like barely 300 pages, and I struggled to get through this so much. So like I get it. I do think it's relevant. If anything, me talking about this, you think that's interesting, especially if you're used to older sci-fi and the style doesn't bother you. I have heard that LeGuin stuff is a bit drier than most. And like the only LeGuin I had read prior to this is Earthsea, which is kind of, dated and a little bit dry, but nothing compared to The Left Hand of Darkness. And so I did not have a good time with this book at all. And it does do, like I said, it does some interesting things. There's bits of just exploring the world, and you have that bits of it, and exploring the main character and the narrator and their ideas and the things that they bring in that they're trying to put on this world, but also trying to understand the world for what it is. So like I said, as a thought experiment, some interesting stuff here, but trying to get through a full novel of the style that this is written in, just I had a pretty rough time with as well. And there was just some stuff that just seemed odd, and I feel like you sometimes get that with the older sci-fi and fantasy for that amount too. Older sci-fi fantasy, sometimes you just have things that just sort of happen because parts of the other plot is like he starts in one area and then there's all of these things that happen, then he goes somewhere else and then everything's fine, but then everything is not fine and then stuff goes wrong and stuff just kind of just happens. And it doesn't feel like we're really doing a ton of like having a solid linear reason why things are happening. Stuff just sort of happens. And it is, we have throughout little bits where it'll explain certain little cultural elements, or it'll include like a story that's from this culture. And once again, like in theory, sounds like it would be interesting to read, and like the idea of this as well, but just all of it, like I said, this is really one with the writing style. It just did not work for me, and I could not get my brain to enjoy it. So I would be curious, because I know I have heard mixed things. I know some people talk about this, and this is, hailed as like a really groundbreaking and important sci-fi book. But also, I know there are people out there who probably also did not like this because it was just so dry and all that kind of thing. So be interested in the thoughts here. Like I said, it's interesting as a thought experiment, but just for the writing style, not for me. I don't think I would read any more of LeGuin's sci-fi if this is what I'm getting into. So also let me know. Is it all like this? Was it just this book? Because I think I have at least one other of her sci-fi books that I've gotten. But yeah, let me know, because this was not for me. But overall, those are my thoughts on The Left Hand of Darkness. Let me know your thoughts as well. Feel free to tell me I'm completely wrong and I just didn't get it, or that, I'm fine. It's okay. I'm sure there'll be some of that here too. I know I'll have some things that are just probably... I've had some probably hot takes this month already, but that's kind of just where I landed at it. But make sure to give it a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description, as always, for the Wizard of the Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether this book, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun. We'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.